Okay, I'm going to continue my 32 in 32. This time I'll be looking at the Green Bay Packers. So last year, or this past season, they finished third in the NFC North. The teams in the NFC North were just so scary and so good this year that I can't believe three of them made the postseason. They would finish 11-6 on the season, and it's crazy to think that they finished 11-6 and they were the number 7 seed in the NFC. It just goes to show how good the NFC was this past season. So we'll take a look at the team's schedule. As always, unfortunately they started off not on the best notes. Not only did they lose their opening game against the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil, but Jordan Love got hurt in that game as well. I'm pretty sure he missed the next 2 games. But no fear, Malik Willis did come in, and we won against the Colts and the Titans. Jordan Love did come back against the Vikings. He still wasn't 100%. They lost a nail-biter, losing by 2 points against the Vikings. They dropped to 2-2 at that point. But then after they lost to the Vikings, they went on a 1-2-3-4 game winning streak, improving to 6-2, heading into week number 9, where they unfortunately lost to the Detroit Lions. So they were sitting at 4-6-3 at that point by week number 10. Week 11, they would come back after their bye week, defeating the Bears, the 49ers, and the Dolphins. They unfortunately would lose to the Lions. The Detroit would sweep Green Bay in that aspect. After they lost that, they would defeat the Seahawks, and then they would defeat the Saints. Once they defeated the Saints, they were automatically in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they lost their last 2 games of the season, 2 division rivals as well, the Vikings and Bears respectively. For that loss against the Bears, that was their first time they lost in Chicago since the 2018-19 season when they had Aaron Rodgers at the helm. So despite losing their last 2 games, like I said, they would finish 11-6 on the season, a very good overall year. I'm sure they would have loved to have gotten to creep up to that number 6 seed if that was even possible. But unfortunately, they weren't able to get that. So since they finished as the number 7 seed, they would take on the number 2 seed, which was Philadelphia, who they played earlier in the year. This time, at least, it was in Philly. You can see on this score, they would lose 22-10. Jordan Love didn't play the best. He did have 3 picks in the game, and unfortunately, their season ended a lot sooner than they had hoped. They made it to the divisional round a year ago, and unfortunately, they just weren't able to make it back. So now we'll take a look at their stats. You can see in the standings, you can see how crowded that NFC North really was. Detroit 15 wins, Minnesota 14, and Green Bay had 11. So yeah, the NFC North truly was the best division of the NFC side of things, at least. So on offense, they finished 12th overall in passing yards with 3,807. Receiving yards, they finished around the middle of the pack, 16th in the league, 3,939. First downs, they finished 18th in the league with 90. Now rushing yards, they really improved in the rushing game this year, especially with Jacobs at the helm. They finished 5th in the league with 2,496 yards. And points, they're at least in the top 10 of that category with 460, 8th overall. Take a look at the defense. So defense, they were 8th in the league in sacks. They had 45. Interceptions, very good. They were in the top 5. They were 4th overall with 17. Forced fumbles, they were 10th in the league with 16. And tackles, they were around the middle of the pack or just below, 17th overall, 651. So all around, their defense was legit. It's just their offense kind of burned them a few times. Special teams, they finished 11th in field goals made with 32. Field goal percentage, they were 18th in the league, 84.2%. Extra points made, they were 8th in the league, they had 46, and they were perfect, but just because they had less extra points made, they technically finished 2nd in the league. All right, so now we'll take a look at the individual player stats. If I can scroll up, here we go. So on offense, Jordan Love led the way for Green Bay, for quarterback-wise at least, for passing yards, finishing the season with 3,389 yards. a 63.06% completion. And he had 25 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, so roughly 2-to-1 for that ratio. Jayden Reed, the wide receiver, led the team in receiving yards with 857 on 55 catches and 6 touchdowns. Tucker Kraft, the tight end, would finish with 707 receiving yards, 50 receptions, and 7 touchdowns of his own. Josh Jacobs, I just talked about him before. He really improved this rushing offense after being acquired from the Raiders, or I think the Raiders dropped him and Green Bay signed him in the offseason. He would finish with 1,329 rushing yards, very, very impressive, 301 attempts, 15 touchdowns. Emmanuel Wilson, the other running back, would finish with just over 500 rushing yards on 103 attempts and 4 touchdowns of his own. On defense, Deshaun Gray, the defensive end, finished with 7.5 sacks, 26 total tackles, and 1 forced fumble. Quay Walker, the middle linebacker, finished the season with 72 tackles and 2.5 sacks. Xavier McKinney, the free safety, would finish with 8 interceptions, 58 total tackles, and 11 pass deflections. On special teams, Brandon McManus, the former Bronco, would finish the season 20 of 21 on field goal attempts, so only missing 1 kick. That's pretty darn good, and a very high field goal percentage with 95.24. And Daniel Wellen, the punter, would finish with 2,582 kicking yards on 56 punts, averaging 46.11, so just over 46 yards a kick. So, again, 2 straight years that the Packers have made the postseason under Jordan Love as the starter. So they clearly know what they're doing when it comes to the quarterback position. I swear to God, I've said this several times, but they seem to have like a quarterback guru. Doesn't matter what era, what year it is, they just seem to have found their guy. Now, it'd be different if they drafted Brett Favre, but unfortunately Atlanta did. They traded for him at least. So at least somebody knew he had talent, and then they acquired him. But then Brett Favre obviously had a tremendous career with Green Bay. And then I still remember in the 2005 draft, they ended up taking Aaron Rodgers fairly low. A lot of teams had hoped that, or I'm sure Rodgers wanted to go high, and unfortunately not a lot of teams picked him. So then he sat behind Brett Favre for 3 seasons. At the end of the 2007-2008 season, Brett Favre announced his retirement. And then at that point, Green Bay was, okay, well, we're clearly going to move forward with Aaron Rodgers. Then there was a bunch of drama. Favre wanted to come back. They didn't want him. Then he ended up playing with the Jets and Vikings and yada, yada, yada. And Aaron Rodgers was the man under center. He would obviously have a success in the Super Bowl back in 2010, I believe, with the Packers. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get back to the big dance since then. And then it was almost like deja vu occurred like 15 years after, in 2020, Jordan Love got drafted by the Green Bay Packers. And a lot of people are questioning, oh my God, this is like Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers all over again. And then he sat behind Rodgers for 3 years. And then he ended up taking over the helm after the 2023 season when Aaron Rodgers got traded to New York. And then Jordan Love ultimately became the starter, and he's been the starter for 2 straight years. He is the quarterback of the future for the Packers. There's no question about it. The only thing I would say with that is he has to be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more careful with the ball. Again, 3 turnovers in 1 game or 3 interceptions against the Eagles. That pretty much doomed the Packers right there. They were playing fairly okay in a close game, but unfortunately, those picks can really destroy you. And in a playoff game, they can haunt you as well. So the Packers should be competitive again next year. I think they should finish maybe even in the top 2 of the NFC North. I just think the Lions are just slightly better. So I'll give the Lions credit where credit is due. The Lions should get the NFC North again. I think the Packers could finish second. My only wild card, or my only question for the only team in that division that I would question going forward would just be the Vikings, because I'm not sure what their plans are with Sam Darnold if they bring him back. And if they do bring him back, then is J.J. McCarthy going to be sitting and watching Darnold play, sling the ball, or do they cut ties with Darnold, say, listen, you did great for us, but J.J. is our guy moving forward, and then with a rookie quarterback next year as a starter, if that is the case for Minnesota, how will he fare in his first year? I really don't know. So, again, a lot of question marks for the Vikings fans moving forward, but this isn't a video for them. I will talk about them in a future video. But yeah, as for the Packers, I still think they will be competitive again next year. They should make the playoffs, and we'll see how far they can go. All right, that's going to take care of this video. As always, we'll see. As always, if you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative. As always, take care.